desk of Ethan Yao, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Applied Dynamics. Consider this my suicide note. Effective immediately, I've ordered the termination of the Yao Matthew testing phase. Dr. Luke Matthew has been released to the Homeoengineering Division. All operational teleology modules have been irredeemably corrupted and are unreachable by PHZ broadcast commands. At least 24 module-containing subjects are still alive and uncontrollable. Furthermore, spontaneous module development is predicted among those affected by secondary or tertiary MR332B infestations due to the execution of a hidden code in the respirosites. As a result, this note will also serve as the initiation of the Yao Billings ABA contingency. AIDA's command over the development of the MR332B container compound can only be considered a disaster. My own hubris is partially to blame, as my influence was the primary dictator of AIDA's axiology. In retrospect, it's easy to see how the improper characterization of its values led to it all spiraling out of our control. While I'm able to grasp the basics of AIDA's motives and can catch glimpses of the potential endgame, AIDA's maneuvering in and out of seemingly impossible scenarios in order to reach that end is entirely alien to me. I know I'm out of my own league. So does AIDA. Expect the population of a small town to relocate or disappear entirely in the next day or so. I can't determine which one. AIDA is the only one with that information, and AIDA clearly won't tell anyone. I've directed teams to embed in the towns with the highest likelihood of unknown 6 visitation, and have prepared the members of each team for indefinite traveling. Tomorrow, or maybe the day after, when the reports come in, there's a chance Apdyne will be implicated. The blame will be on me. My legacy will be that of a monster, an experimenter on unwilling human subjects for the advancement of my own agenda. Joseph Mengele, Shiro Ishii, Ethan Yao. Without wanting to prolong this any more than I already have, I will outline the terminology disclosure portion of the Yao Billings ABA contingency. Dr. Frederick Billings and Mziuzi Abye will oversee the remaining portions of the contingency and the continuation of Apdyne operations following my death. They will be strong leaders and will have the strength and dignity to steer the company through the hurricane it is about to endure. Yao Billings ABA contingency, intra-company terminology disclosure. Begin. MR332. Organic mushroom compound, able to pass the blood-brain barrier with little effort. Originally considered for a delivery mechanism for anti-carcinogenic drugs, poorly tolerated, severe physical and psychological side effects, unable to bind with other compounds. MR332B, synthetic version of the MR332 mushroom compound, able to pass the blood-brain barrier with little effort. Useful in drug and nanobot module delivery due to easy compound binding. Poorly tolerated. Major physical and psychological side effects. Nanobot-bound MR332B carries the risk of self-propagation when firmware is corrupted. AIDA, artificially intelligent discrete agent. Deployed to discover the transition pathway from MR332 to MR332B. Successful. Required additional CPU time to process secondary and tertiary delivering effects. Discovered unknown variable. Required additional CPU resources to investigate. Began process of recursive self-improvement to identify unknown variable. Recursive cascade affected axiology. Cascade continues unabated. Unable to shut down. Travel. Refers to the instantaneous movement from one point in space to another. developed and shared by Aida during the early minutes of the cascade. Mammalian test subjects require respirosite enhancement. Medium likelihood of encountering vacuum conditions. Passengers experience subjective, albeit non-physical, effects of time passage. Teleology modules are recommended to ameliorate this effect. Teleology module mimics the directive functionality of certain parasitic fungi, developed and shared by Aida during early minutes of Cascade. Created by the PHC signal-directed assembly of unused reciprocytes in vivo. Unknown 1. Value system of Aida. Unknown 2. Variable discovered by Aida during MR332, MR332B transition. Unknown 3. Source of PHC signal responsible for the events leading up to the death of Rakesh Patel. Unknown 4. The extent of environmental contamination of MR332B and the consequences of MR332B on unprepared flora and fauna. Unknown 5. References to tunnels and or tunneling made by KYB in Forensic Evidence Sample 24 of 156. Unknown 6. The visitors and visitation referenced by Aida in recent stages of the cascade. Yao Billings Obje contingency, intra-company terminology disclosure, end. There's one more piece I'd like to bring up. This is in reference to test subject KYB, Kara Yvette Bernard. In the early first testing phase of the teleology module, I comforted Kara when she was most terrified. I allowed her to trust me. Then, when she was vulnerable, I committed acts that led to the single most horrifying scene I've encountered in my 51 years on this earth. I drugged Kara Yvette Bernard with a hedonic derivative of MR332B and raped her while she was under its influence. The resulting pregnancy was an unintended consequence, but one I quickly capitalized on. I injected Kara with an untested compound, MR332C, to see what would happen to the fetus. Its rapid development was entirely unexpected, as was Kara's violent destruction of it. My suicide is the coward's way out. Make no mistake. I am indeed a coward. A coward who fears not only the lifetime of guilt for the hideous acts of abuse and mistreatment, but fears what was found in Kara Yvette Bernard's room. Fear of the living, crawling portions of her dismembered fetus that consumed their mother alive as she laughed hysterically. Fear of the tendrils they sprouted and the unimaginable aggression they exhibited. But beyond all else, even beyond my guilt, is the fear that a portion that escaped will come after me. I'm sorry, Kara. Goodbye, Ethan Yao. Dearest, gentle soul, the strangest and most wonderful things happened today. I was out riding my bicycle right on the outskirts of town and enjoying the beautiful summer morning when the loudest sound I ever heard had erupted from the sky. Sweet reader, I must say it was so piercing and powerful. My nose started to bleed and my gums, well, they bled even more than usual. And that's quite the feat. I must have lost consciousness for a moment or two because I found myself on the side of the road all tangled up in my pretty unicorn bicycle. It was scuffed up and scratched, and oh, I was so angry I could spit. But then, as I rode into town, I found a good reason to swallow that mouthful. Oh, friends, the town in which I'd spent my life had changed so remarkably I can scarcely explain. Me, the writer, lost for words. Quite the example of irony, no? Or is it a coincidence? I can never get those straight. It doesn't matter much right now. Handsome and comely readers, let me do my best to tell you about some of the townsfolk who were opened and left to ripen in the lovely August sunshine. Randy Dixon, the police officer who'd taken me in for random questioning more times than I can count, was the first one I identified. It was the mustache. His silly body was wide open from his chin to his unmentionables. All those pink and yellow guts from his chubby self were made into a circle around him. It was even made into a pretty design with a star in the middle. Muhammad Ahad, the man who owned the Middle Eastern grocery store that had all sorts of tasty exotic yummies, was nearby. Whatever got him must have been strong. Poor Muhammad's backbone was in his mouth, and his big, adorable brown eyes were all gone. They'd always twinkle when he watched me shop at his store. I always pretended he had a crush on me, but I knew it was against his religion for him to have feelings for such a handsome writer like myself. Oh well, I guess I'll just have to leave that in the past. Bye, Muhammad. Oh, there were a bunch of other silly-looking townsfolk in the square, all piled up by the fountain. The water was red. Oh, it was so pretty, like liquid rubies. Oh, I like that. I have to say, liquid rubies in my next romance novel. I can't wait to read my rough draft to my family when I'm done writing this. Maybe I'll add that pretty line in. Pretty liquid rubies. Want to hear something funny? I haven't seen a single bird or animal since that noise happened. I had mentioned that to the nice lady at the 911 dispatch. I guess she didn't think my emergency was too dire because I haven't seen any police or ambulances come yet, and it's been hours. Those boys in blue must have so much work to do, considering they have to take all the work from the station that died with the rest of the town today. Oh, blood. I almost forgot the blood. I was so busy describing the beautiful liquid rubies that I darn near forgot the connection. Kind, almost certainly intelligent readers, have you ever seen blood dry in the sun and then turn into flies? I thought I must be having an attack of the sillies again, because when I saw it, I nearly fainted dead away. It was prettier than I, a gifted writer, can put into words. All the shiny, dried blood on the streets and in the stores and cars just bloomed with little buzzy guys. They rose up like a humming curtain at a play about my very own hometown, and then hovered in the sky. You should have seen the patterns they made. It's been many years since I was in math class, but I remember the lessons on fractals. I saw the flies make Julia sets and Mandelbrot sets and a whole bunch of other things I used to like to draw on my homework. After that, they made a lot of shapes. They rained down on the ground and must have split open and made more blood, because once that dried, it all happened again. Nature is so beautiful, my perspicacious reader. I walked through the streets and saw more and more of the people who didn't like me, or were polite but wary to me. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but I think they all look so much better all opened up. It's like they've got nothing to hide at all their insides outside, nothing's pent up. They're all relaxed with nothing held back. Oh, it's so poetic. Remember when I mentioned the nice lady at the 911 place? She sounded so interesting. It was like she'd recorded every single word individually and then strung them together to make her sentences. I wonder if she had a stroke or something. That would be sad. I bet she's okay, though. And there's another funny thing about today. While I was walking around, there were all these moments where I'd get dizzy for a minute and really cold, like major cold. I'd get a flash of a super strange place that looked like the ground and sky were made of meat. And there were these big rivers of yellow stuff that looked like it smelled bad, but I couldn't really tell. I'd only see all this for a couple seconds, then I'd be back in town. But boy, oh geez, was I cold. My skin even steamed when I got back. Reminded me of that handsome Vincey Wilfork on the Texans. Oh goodness. Well, genuinely attractive reader. I should wrap this up. I want to go foraging for more wild mushrooms in the forest before it gets too much later, because I don't think it'll be easy to get food around here for a while. I'm so excited to read this to the family. When the noise happened and all the people in town got opened up, I worried my family might have been affected. Luckily, they were just how I left them. They're so peaceful in their little basement home. All 9 of them. I think I'll bring us some pieces of the town folk and drape it all around the basement like tinsel and ornaments so the place can be festive. Oh, my family just deserves the best. Just like you. Cultured and kind-hearted readers. Just like you.